Good Thursday morning, everyone. Welcome to our morning Reveille with General Mattis. My name is Michael Novakovich. I'm the president and CEO of Visit Tri-Cities, and I have the great honor, privilege, and pleasure as serving as your MC this morning. We are so excited that you've chose to join us as we celebrate scouting today. This is clearly a fundraising event, and there's going to be many opportunities for you to respond to the overwhelming needs of scouting here in our community. But I know you're going to feel inspired. I know that you're going to be entertained as we celebrate scouting's fulfillment of their mission through the Blue Mountain Council today. As you participate today, please take note of the pledge form that's on the side of the streaming content. You'll also see we have a tracking mechanism there. I'm hoping maybe you're inspired by others' givings or maybe even challenged, whatever it takes. We encourage you to give generously today to scouting here in our community, and we thank you for that generosity. Well, I'd also like to draw your attention to the long list of sponsors we have. Sponsors, thank you, thank you, thank you. You know, we couldn't do what we do. We wouldn't be here today. We wouldn't have scouting in our community if it wasn't for the generosity of our sponsors. We cannot thank you enough. Well, let us appropriately begin this morning with a special invocation graciously offered by Pastor Justin Porter from Hill Spring Church, which chapters Scouts BSA Girl Troop 219, as well as BSA Troop 190 and Venturing Crew 190. After the invocation, our flag ceremony will be led by Maya and Mia Chimal, Cub Scout sisters from Tierra Vita Pack 100 in East Pasco. Pastor, I turn it over to you.
Good morning, all. Pastor Justin here, and I just want to welcome you all and say thank you for joining us this morning. I have the honor of opening us up in a word of prayer. So would you please bow your heads with me? Holy One, we thank you so much for the opportunity to gather. And even though it's a little different than we would have liked, we know that you're present as we are present. God, we thank you for all the leadership in the midst of this pandemic, for all those volunteers, all those healthcare workers who have put their lives on the line in the midst of this so that we can move forward. Lord, we also thank you for the Scouts, for the way that they have responded in the midst of this pandemic and are looking for unique and different, fun, amazing ways to continue to shape our youth into the generation that is going to allow tomorrow to thrive. Lord, we thank you for Ed Ray, for George Garlick, and other people who have devoted their lives to serving so that others can be the best that they can be. Lord, we thank you for General Mattis, for his leadership, for the opportunity to gather with him this morning. We ask that your presence would be felt in and through him and everyone else that is here. And Lord, as we pursue the conversation this morning, we ask that everyone here would be transformed through this encounter in a way that leads to a better day and a better tomorrow. Again, we thank you for this moment. We thank you for this time. And we ask all this in your name, Lord Jesus. Amen.
Please repeat with me the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, for liberty and justice for all. Ahora el español. Yo prometo libertar a la bandera de los Estados Unidos de América y a la república que representa una nación bajo Dios, indivisible, con libertad y justicia para todos.
On my honor,
I'll do my best
سأبذل قصارى جهدي
to do my duty, to God and my country, and obey the Scout law.
أعيد بشرفي أن أبذل كل جهدي
to help other people at all times.
جسديا مستيقظ عقليا to keep myself physically strong.
وأن أعمل بقانون الكشاف.
Mentally awake and morally straight.
A scout is trustworthy, loyal, helpful,
صادق، مخلص، نافع،
Friendly, courteous, kind.
ودود، مؤدب.
thrifty, brave, clean, and reverent.
Exceptional. What a performance by a sharp group of scouts. You know, while they weren't able to gather for this opening ceremony, you can tell they're definitely unified in purpose to fulfill the duties as scouts and citizens of this great nation and community. Great job, scouts. Well, we have an exciting announcement to make. Stevens Center Management has presented us with a special matching donation of $10,000. Thank you so much, Stevens Center Management. Great opportunity for all of us, but wait, there's more. Board members from the Blue Mountain Council and Friends of Scouting have added to this pot an additional, more than actually, $21,000 worth of matching funds. Our goal today is $37,000 to take full advantage of this match. Great opportunity. There are few times in our lives where our investment can be doubled like that. And today, your investment will be as we invest in scouting in our community. So we thank you for your generosity and all those that contributed to this matching fund. You know, this generosity is going to have an immediate impact on youth, on families, and directly on our community, and we couldn't be more excited. So thank you, thank you, thank you. Well, we're now pleased to hear from leadership from Blue Mountain Council. First, Brett Bybee, the Scout Executive and CEO, and then from Craig Littrell, now serving first term as Council President. At this time, I'd like to turn it over to Brett Bybee.
Thank you, Michael. I'd like to welcome all of you to this first ever virtual morning reveille featuring our very own General Mattis as our keynote speaker. I just wanted to take just a moment to thank everyone who has helped to make this special event happen in spite of this pandemic and so many other challenges that we're dealing with right now. From General Mattis, who has been so accommodating throughout this pandemic crisis, to our many sponsors, especially our Eagle sponsor, Stevens Center Management, a very community-minded organization led by leaders with vision and so much heart. And our amazing professional videography team in James Harpster with JRH Visuals and EXP Realtor Brian Griffin, who have spent over 100 hours shooting and editing quality video for today's program at no cost to the council. And Brittany Ewing with Be Present Design, who has graciously designed and produced so much quality artwork for printing, website, and other media use. To our honorees, Mr. Ed Ray and George Garlick, for being such a joy to get to know and be inspired by. To our board members, who have demonstrated their passionate commitment to scouting here in our community. And to our all-star staff, who will finally be able to breathe after this event is over. And to our faithful scouts and their families, many of which will be participating in the program today, and one amazing scout who even designed and built this very podium on stage today for her Woodwork Merit Badge. To all of you who are taking time out of your day this morning to join in celebrating and advancing the mission of scouting throughout the Blue Mountain Council, thank you so much. Despite the myriad of challenges swirling around us right now, we have the tremendous opportunity this morning to help the Blue Mountain Council maintain its 2020 vision for the future, preparing tomorrow's leaders. So now, without further ado, let's get this program underway and begin making a tidal wave of difference for our youth. Craig, as Council President, help us set the stage for today's program.
Thank you, Michael. It is indeed a privilege to be here today with all of you. Not only do we have the distinct pleasure of hearing our own General Mattis while he shares his thoughts on leadership, but I'm confident you'll get an important glimpse of leadership in action by just a few of our scouts today as a backdrop before presenting Boy Scouts of America North Star Award to Ed Ray and George Garlick, who are two outstanding community leaders whose passion for serving this community, especially our youth, has been an inspiration for decades and whose legacy will continue to inspire for generations to come. The challenges before Scouting today are many. The current pandemic has only added to an already strained situation that will profoundly impact this organization, so laser focused on preparing our youth to lead and be guided by the values of the Scout Oath and law. While our largest partner discontinued its official sponsorship of Scouting as the youth ministry program for its young men in 2019, many families of the Church of Jesus Christ Latter-day Saints have recognized the value of continuing to support Scouting mission by enrolling their children in community-based packs and troops, continuing to volunteer as leaders and counselors, and continuing to provide financial support. That said, with a history of over 60% of our Scouts belonging to the LDS-sponsored packs and troops, and nearly 80% of council revenue historically coming from LDS congregations, you can imagine that such a drastic change has undoubtedly had a drastic impact. Add this to an overwhelming hurdle, the looming financial challenges, the National BSA organization, and now countless effects of the worldwide pandemic, we have a perfect storm that cannot be weathered without the community rallying together to keep Scouting strong. This is perhaps our Churchill moment, that moment when we have been figuratively tapped on the shoulder and offered to do a very special thing, unique to us, fitted to our talents. This is our time to shine. Early indications are this is indeed our finest hour. Through a very engaged board of directors and a small yet passionate, talented staff, Scouting is on the move. We have expanded our service to a more diverse community population, including a new family Scouting pack at Terra Vita in East Pasco, a new boy and girl troop at the Islamic Center of the Tri-Cities, and 4 additional girl troops throughout the council, including 2 here in the Tri-Cities. These new packs and troops have wasted no time leaving their indelible mark on our community. You may be wondering why BSA is suddenly now so concerned about serving girls. To be clear, it's not about serving girls. It's about serving the whole family with a single, proven curriculum and time-tested methods that build leadership in youth, regardless of their gender. This video that you're about to see demonstrates perfectly why Scouting has moved to meet the need for families in Scouting.
Let's go, guys. Get your stuff.
Don't forget your coffee. And I'll meet you there later with the food.
Sounds good.
Hey guys.
Hey, honey.
So the cooler's in there and the snacks are in that one. I'll see y'all later.
Don't forget your coffee.
You guys ready?
Yeah.
What about you?
Scout me in.
Let's go.
Thank you. This video always touches me. It reminds me of an incredible program we have for our youth and families to enjoy together. Not only is it safe, educational, and relevant for today's youth, it's a blast, and parents and siblings get to share the fun as well. As I conclude my message today, I'd like to hear from just a few of our local Scouting families sharing why they enjoy pursuing the adventures of Scouting together. Thanks again for your support.
It allowed us to be
more together and do activities together, but more so as far as my daughters, I have seen a great improvement in their self-esteem and opportunities that they get to develop their leadership skills has been something that I have really admired. So I really enjoy seeing my daughters go there with a happy smile, always looking for a new adventure, even though it may be in a gym setting, but they always have fun doing activities that they do.
The Pine Derby. I think it's awesome seeing them kind of build their own little car and figure out the weight and the speed. You know, it's amazing. Really, I like that.
I'm a parent of Scouts. I've been a Scout ever since I was knee-high to a grasshopper when my parents got me in Scouts. And Scouts is a fun place. It's a safe place. It's a great place to learn. It's a great program. As a dad of only daughters, I was especially excited the day that I found out that my daughters could finally participate in these same programs.
So my favorite part in the Scouts is team building, specifically because individually everybody has their own strengths, but as a together you can bring a lot of new things into the system, or for the safety or anything for science and technology, everything. The unity is really important.
I like how I've learned how to carve things.
What did you carve them with?
A pocket knife.
It takes a lot of responsibility, doesn't it?
The funnest thing I did was like playing, having fun, building stuff with my teammates, like interacting with other, like working as a team. Like when we do skits, we we act plays. We work as a team to like act the best play and like have fun.
It helped a lot to shape the kids' future. It teach them discipline. It teach them how to be united. It teach them it doesn't matter where are you from and what's your color and what's your language. We all one, and we all can do the best for our community, and we could serve the community in the best way.
Through this exercise, we captured more than 30 minutes of very wise counsel in response to some excellent questions from local Scouts. We have only time now for a few of those questions, but I'd encourage you to go to Blue Mountain Council's YouTube channel. You can click, there's an icon on this video feed, or you can visit their website at bluemountainscouts.org. I encourage you to finish out this program here today and then go listen to this wonderful exchange and all these leadership lessons that were gleaned from General Mattis between him and this exchange with our Scouts. Well, why don't we get right to it? Let's check out that exchange.
Well, hello, Scouts. I'm Jim Mattis, Richland Boy Scout back in my younger days, and I'm happy to be with you today. And we're going to answer some questions here that some of you have submitted to all of us so we could look at them, and I get to be the one who answers them. So here we go.
Hi, my name is Celeste Blair, and I'm from Troop 2 in Richland, Washington. Thank you for taking time to speak to me today, and thank you for your service to our country. My question is, the Scout Law teaches us to be courteous and kind to others, and the Scouting program teaches us to be accepting of others despite their differences. I was wondering how that teaching had influenced your career, and what advice you had for young people like me.
Yeah, Celeste, thanks for the question about courtesy and kindness toward others. You know, I've been all around the world since I left Richland, visited over 70 countries. I've been in a lot of fights around the world, and I've always been alongside allies. Other forces met their leaders. They speak different languages, we're different colors, we go to different churches or mosques, very, very different. And yet we were unified on the battlefield by our mission. And so to show respect for one another, which is what you're really doing when you're kind or you're courteous to someone else, is fundamental to pulling a team together so you can work together. Anyone who thinks that you can have a team that plays well together, that works well together, but doesn't show courtesy or kindness to one another, doesn't accept one another's differences, they're people who've never been in a good leadership position. So I learned a long time ago from the Scout Oath, the promise, and the values I was taught in the Scouts, that you have to show these kind of courtesies because that's how you show respect. And with respect, you build trust, and with trust, you can do anything. Without trust, you can't do very much. So it's a great question, Celeste. And one other point, Celeste, I want you to know, because it relates to your question. You thanked me for my service, and I hear that a lot, and I appreciate it. But I want you to know that I don't care if you're male or female. I don't care if you're black or white or brown or yellow or red or anything else. I don't care if you go to the church or the mosque. I don't care if you go to the synagogue or somewhere else for your spiritual strength. I want you to know, whoever you are here, you are worth it every day that I served this country. It was never a burden for me. I was proud to stand up for you, and I'm proud that every one of you has the freedom to be who you are. So thanks for mentioning your appreciation for my service, Celeste, but remember this, you are worth it.
General Mattis, you've worked your way up the ranks as a leader throughout your career. What things can a young scout do to develop themselves into a great leader?
Yeah, developing yourself into a great leader is a good way to put it, because leaders are not born. Leaders are made. And what I did was, as I left Richland and took the Scout Oath and what I learned in the Boy Scouts with me, I also developed a hankering, a desire to read about other leaders. And little by little, I learned how other people had dealt with problems, because that's what leadership is all about. You need role models when you're developing as a young man, young woman, and trying to become your own person in life, your own type of leadership, because you don't want to just copy someone else. You have to stay yourself. You're good enough. You just have to build on your approach to living. The Boy Scouts give you good framework, but I also found some great framing advice from the father of our country, General George Washington. You have to wonder, how did General Washington take all these free young men from all over the colonies who didn't know each other, they didn't trust each other in all cases? How did he pull them together into a revolutionary army that would beat the biggest and best army in the world at that time, the British Redcoats, and as a result, give us the country, the freedom we have today? How did he do it? And as I studied his leadership, it was really a rather methodical approach. And it's easy to remember, and I have followed it ever since I was young and first read about it. What George Washington did was he identified his problem right up front. How do you take independent guys from Delaware who go fishing every day and are now in the Army and put them under these grandees from Virginia and South Carolina guys who speak so different that people in Boston can't even understand them? How did he create an army out of these free men, knowing that they were fighting for freedom, but he needed them to be disciplined and be good soldiers, or they would not win on the battlefield, we would not win our freedom, and in fact, his army could die if they didn't do it. Here's the way George Washington did it. He would listen very carefully, and he did not listen just long enough to say, fine, I hear you, but I'm going to go off and do whatever I wanted to do in the first place. He actually listened, and he was willing to be persuaded because he thought maybe other people had something of value to tell him. And so he learned from them. So the first two steps were he would listen to others and really listen to them, and then he would learn from them how they looked at a situation, at a problem. And then he would figure a way to help them. So he would listen to them and learn from them. He's showing respect to them there. Then he would help them, and he's building their confidence in him. And at that point, he would lead. So what I would suggest is you look at how George Washington learned to become a great leader. He wasn't just born a great leader either. He had to learn. He had to answer the same question to himself that you just asked me. He would listen and learn, and then he would help others, and then he would lead. That's a great, great formula, I think, for young leaders who are learning to apply their own style, their own character, their own values to leading others.
Hi, my name is Sephora, and I'm from Scout Troop 279. My question for you is, what do you take in consideration when you're making a decision?
Yeah, now you're going into the real essence of being a leader. Because as a leader, you have to almost enjoy getting problems dropped in your lap. Because leadership is all about solving problems. If there's no problem, then the organization moves right along. No big issues come up. The family's doing fine, there's no problem. It's when there's problems that we need leaders. So what do you take into account at those times? The first thing you have to do as a leader is to make sure that you define the problem. In other words, if we don't talk about what the problem is, and we all go off in a family or on a sports team in a Boy Scout troop to solve the problem, the chances are we're all solving a different problem, or we're looking at it differently. So if you spend time as a leader first getting everyone to agree on what is the problem we're trying to solve here, come to agreement on that. You'd be surprised. People will be looking at the same issue and say, well, that's not the problem. The problem's over here. And all of a sudden you realize, yeah, there is some of that. So you come up with a good idea of what is the problem. And then you organize the team and you take those who are experts in certain areas and you listen to them because they can help, and you discuss their points of view and you resolve it. You go to the heart of the problem's definition, and then you come up with what are the different options that we can use to solve it. Then you just talk about it. You listen to one another. You have a good argument about it or discussion about it, but you listen to each other and you come up with what's best. But remember, always start out by defining the problem. If you spend time defining the problem, then you have a good chance of solving the problem. If you don't get everyone to agree on what the problem is up front, you'll never solve the same problem. You'll all be working on different sheets of music, and you know what happens if one guy's trying to sing one song, another guy's trying to sing a different song. There's no harmony there, you know? So take time to get everybody on the same sheet of music and then figure out how to solve your problem.
Can you tell us about the important moment when a senior Navy officer placed you, a Marine, in charge of 6 Navy ships as part of Task Force 58? What kind of collaborative leadership can we as Scouts learn from that?
Okay, what a great question. You've obviously studied my background pretty closely there, young Scout. What happened, ladies and gentlemen, number one, I joined the Marines when I was 18 years old, and the Marines are part of the Navy Department. And what does that mean? It means the Secretary of the Navy has the U.S. Navy and the U.S. Marines as his forces that he provides civilian oversight to. So Marines grow up like myself, and we spend years at sea on board ships. We travel around the world, we land in various countries, work with their militaries. Sometimes we land on combat operations, but we're a naval force is the bottom line. So always being curious, I'd spend a lot of time learning how ships work and this sort of thing. But really what happened was after our country was attacked on 9/11 by terrorists, and they had killed thousands of innocent Americans, plus innocent people, by the way, from 91 countries died on the day our country was attacked, which reminds us how America draws people from all over the world to this wonderful, great big country, this great big experiment in democracy that you and I call America. And so I was sent to the Middle East where I was a 1-star general and I met a 3-star admiral, and he had a plan for how we could complicate the enemy's fighting. They were fighting some of our allies in one place. He wanted my Marines to go in someplace else so that we would split the enemy forces and make it easier for our allies who were fighting that same enemy who were part of the attack on America. And so when he put me in charge, it was because of my reputation. It was because of the trust he had in me. And why do I go back to that word trust yet again? Because in teams, when you build teams, they're all about trust. And what you want to do is take active steps to build trust. How would I do that? One point was I sat down with the commanders of those ships as soon as I flew out to sea and landed on the deck of the flagship. That's the ship where I'm going to be in command of the other ships. And all the captains of the ships got together, and I said, look, you know how to drive ships, you know how to steer ships, you know how to sail ships. We're going to do this, and you're going to land my Marines deep inside enemy territory. And I know you're going to do it. I have absolute confidence in you. Now you tell me how we're going to put the ships into that position and how we're going to launch the Marines in a way that when they hit their landing zones, they're ready to fight. The Marines will tell me how they're going to fight ashore, but I'm going to be in charge of the ships to get them into the right position, but you're going to tell me how to do it. So right away, know where your limitations are, and don't hesitate to bring them up. Do your studies, listen to people, and make the decisions based on what you hear from the experts. Don't ever turn your back on the experts. Always listen to them. In my line of work, sometimes the experts were the captains of Navy ships. These were officers who had been at sea for 15, 20 years. They knew what they were doing. Sometimes my experts are an 18-year-old Marine walking on point in a patrol who's going to say whether the patrol is going to go left or right when he hits a certain point. But you have to listen to the expert. It's not about age, it's not about rank, it's about who has really studied the issue, who is at the point of decision. And the more you listen to people like that, that's the way you build this sort of leadership, this trust that allows you to be selected, because your reputation is you know how to build that trust and you know how to give that trust to people who have earned it and back them up when they make mistakes. And yeah, everybody makes mistakes sometimes. So recognize the difference between a mistake where someone was trying their very best and they just made a mistake. See if you can coach them better in the future, help them more in the future. But also recognize that a lack of discipline is not the same as a mistake. We expect Boy Scouts to live up to the Scout Oath. That's not a mistake when you don't do it. That's a lack of discipline. So make sure you stay disciplined how you deal with life, and that you always look out for others, always put others first, and you won't make those kind of discipline mistakes that cause a lot of problems for yourself, your family, and other people.
Check, check. Good morning. Jim Mattis was raised in Southeast Washington, specifically in Richland. Graduated from Central Washington University. This great man has served, for more than 40 years in the United States Marine Corps. He has served in the Office of the Secretary of Defense as commander of the U.S. Central Command, comprised of 250,000 U.S. and allied troops in combat across the Middle East and Southeast Asia. Retiring in 2013, he was not slowed down and has continued. He is a Davis Family Scholar and at Stanford University's Hoover Institution, also serving as our 26th Secretary of Defense through 2018. I am so honored to introduce to all of you our dear friend and selfless leader, General Mattis.
Well, thank you, Monica. Thank all of you for allowing me to join you here today and welcoming me back among you here in my hometown. It's so good to be back home again and back around Scouts once more. I fondly recall my time in Scouting. I still have my neckerchief from Troop 147. I've kept it with me all these years as a reminder a reminder of what I learned in the Scouts, the reminder of our hikes in the Blue Mountains and the Cascades, community projects, but especially the friendships. The friends I made in Scouting are still my friends today, 5 decades later. I always felt sorry for those who weren't Scouts. I just felt like you didn't get the opportunities that I had. Everywhere I went in the world, as I left Washington State and wandered the world, I met Scouts, and our common experience gave us a starting point to get to know each other. Now, we were in the military, we were in business, in sports, and I always felt that I was richer. I was richer because I had friends, thanks to the great Boy Scouts, who I knew I shared an awful lot with. When you get to having my color hair, what you like to do is pass on lessons learned to you young folks. And it's like an elevator rider. You know, we want to open the doors and bring you all on board an elevator with us. And then we'll close the doors and we'll tell you stories as we go up a few floors. Then we'll open the doors and say, now go on out there into life and you make your own mistakes. Don't make the same mistakes we made. Or here's what I learned along the way. And we carry you up there because that's our obligation to you, to teach you what we learned. That's part of our responsibility. But I think, too, that with Scouting, you develop a shared character that the ages go away. It doesn't mean anything different to you and I that we both took the Scout oath that you're young and I'm old. It means we're all Scouts, is the bottom line. And the character you develop, the shared character we have today, the character that you develop in the Boy Scouts can help you make good decisions in life. Part of the reason I felt sorry for those who were never Scouts, they just weren't as prepared. They weren't as prepared for what life throws at us all. And good things and bad things happen to everybody. Their character wasn't given the chance to develop like ours. And it's no surprise because the Scouts' mission is to prepare you by building your character, helping you develop your character. Because it's character that will carry you through the tough times, my fine young people. Your character will strengthen your families. Your character will strengthen your communities. It will carry strength wherever you apply yourself in the future. And it starts with our oath. And to this day, I still strive to always live up to it. Where you say, on my honor. And when you and I give our word, when we say on our honor, it means that we'll do it, that we'll be true to our word. We say, I will do my best. And on this one, we all forget sometimes to do our best. We're not perfect. None of us are perfect. That's why we have to encourage each other. But I still recall once when I didn't do my best. I was a young guy in the Marines. We were on an obstacle course. The person I was competing against, I was way out in front of. I didn't have to give it 100%. Well, when I got done, my sergeant explained in no uncertain words how unhappy he was with me. He said, you were not giving 100%. You were not doing your best. And if you're only going to give 99%, then I'm going to be completely dissatisfied with you. And believe me, young man, you do not want to make a Marine sergeant dissatisfied with you. I learned that very, very early on. So where you keep the oath of the Boy Scouts fully in mind, you keep it fully focused on what you're doing, you're staying focused with it, then you'll always come out better no matter what obstacles in life you're going over. The Scout law that we all take means you must make choices every day, and life is all about choices. The Scout law says that a Scout is, not that a Scout tries to be, but a Scout is trustworthy, loyal. Two men meet on the street years after they've been in the Boy Scouts. They've long gone on about their lives and all, but they're running into each other for the first time many years from now, and you'll find that they were once Boy Scouts, and they start talking about it, but they know right away what? They can trust each other, that they will help each other. That goes a long way in this world, because nobody makes it on their own. We all have to have comrades, friends, brothers, sisters. Having lived many years since I first swam in the Columbia River here as a boy, I know too that our country needs Scouts. Our country needs young men of character. Our country needs young leaders who give their word and then mean what they say. Our country needs young men and women who believe in our country and do not become cynical when times are tough. They don't give up. Our country needs young leaders who treat all their fellow Americans with respect, which means our country needs every one of you. Every single one of you, we need you. I left home at age 17, only a few years older than you, and I joined the Marines a year later. Today, I often hear words like, thank you for your service. And among fellow Boy Scouts, I want to say again what you just heard in the question and answer period that was just playing. It was a privilege, it was an honor to wear our nation's uniform as a U.S. Marine. It was an honor to fight for America, and I was privileged to fight for America many times. And every one of you, every one of your families was worth every day that I served in the military. It was never a tough thing for me. It was never a burden. It was a privilege. It was an honor as I built on the Scout Oath and the Scout Law to create my own life, all about choices, and the Boy Scouts helped me prepare to make good choices based on character development that they built up in me and handed to me for me to do as I wished, but never to forget the Scout Oath and the Scout Law. Remember, a country doesn't need to be perfect to be worth fighting for, but it does need to be always striving to be better. And so we need you bright young lads to grow straight and strong, to show that freedom we enjoy means that we keep strong friendships with each other, that we help each other, that we know and understand each other. We need young leaders who respect each other and respect their fellow citizens. We need young leaders willing to listen to others, willing to roll up their sleeves and keep improving our country. We need young leaders who can build teams, build teamwork, and bring your enthusiasm to people who want to improve our country but need to be formed into teams to do so. We do not need people who are hostile to others who have different ideas for how to improve our country. We need to work together. And you are the young men so many of us look to for the future leaders for our towns, our cities, our states, our businesses, our military, our colleges. You, the Scouts, will be those leaders. Young leaders who put others first. Those three words I always had drilled into me as a leader, put others first. Who help the less fortunate, who never ignore bullying, but step forward to stop it. Young men and women who are strong enough to be kind and cheerful on tough days, who help others, coach others, and don't condemn them just because they think differently. So why do we need you to live up to your Scout Oath, your Scout Law? Because America is one just great big experiment. It's a great big experiment because our government is made up of the people, by the people, and for the people. Our country is of the people, by the people, for the people. We don't give government to someone else. We govern ourselves. That means you, as you grow older, are going to be part of this government, part of this great big experiment that we want to pass on all of our freedoms to the next generation, to your children, the same freedoms that you enjoy today. We must respect each other if we're going to do this, if we're going to keep this experiment alive. We must work together as a team, just like the Scouts teach you, to keep our freedoms alive and our respect and our courtesy toward one another alive. We need you, Scouts. Physically strong, mentally awake, morally straight, young men and women who help their fellow Scouts when they fall short, who help those in our community who are not as fortunate, and young men who put others first. Remember, my fine young men and women, live up to your oath in the Scout Law. Take care of each other. Take care of each other and put others first. Respect others and always stand up for what's right. Thank you again for having me with you this morning. It's a great privilege to be here, and all the best to you.
Well, good morning. General Mattis, Thank you for that incredible message. It's an honor to have you in attendance, hearing your thoughts on building character and leadership and how those personal traits build the next generation of leaders through scouting. We want to thank you for your service that you provide to our country, community, and scouting. With that said, knowing you were a scout here in the Blue Mountain Council, we are recognizing you as the Blue Mountain Council's 2020 Alumnus of the Year. We're going to present you with this BSA label, lapel pin, and certificate of a token of our appreciation and perhaps a pleasant reminder of your youthful adventures in scouting. Thank you for being part of our program today, and thank you for what you've done and what you continue to do for our country. God bless you.
Truly, thank you, General Mattis, for being with us today and for your life of service on behalf of this great nation. You know, just a personal note as it relates to my business, Visit Tri-Cities. So if we do a rewind and we go back to March of this year when the stay-at-home, stay-safe order came down, we saw this event that would have been an in-person event, and we would have loved to have seen all of your faces gathering today as we heard from the General. This event was canceled, and what we saw in our communities were businesses that closed, layoffs happened, and there was a significant adverse economic impact. Well, knowing that my friend Brett Bybee had a connection to the good General, and knowing the General is invested in the Tri-Cities and has a passion for our community, I reached out to Brett, the scouting CEO, and asked if he could make a connection for us because my organization had an idea about working to preserve local businesses, jobs, and our local economy. I had a great conversation with the General. You might have seen he did a cameo in a video we produced called Come On, Get Your Order On. It was about supporting local businesses and jobs in our local economy. In fact, we caught him coming out of the Spud Nut shop with a bag of deliciousness, which was fantastic. But he also did a PSA for us where he encouraged our community to not only support local businesses, but practice good COVID protocols. And you might have seen about a month ago, he worked with the city of Richland, again, encouraging our community to mask up. So here's what I love. We've seen the General's leadership on the world stage. You just saw it as he was working with Scouts, and we've seen his investment here in our community. He's a true Tri-Citian through and through. And General, we appreciate those leadership lessons that you're providing all of us. Well, he really set the stage perfectly for this final moment in our program. We now have the great honor and privilege to recognize two remarkable community leaders who perfectly exemplify lifelong leadership and giving back to their community. BSA's North Star Award was created to recognize individuals for significant contributions and distinguished service and support of youth. Our honorees today will add their names to a truly legendary list. It begins with Bill Lampson in 2012, Frank Armijo in 2013, Dave Redder in 2014, Matt Moeller in 2015, Mary Learkes in 2016, Craig Littrell in 2017, John and Priscilla Cadwell in 2018, and last year, our good friend, Bill McCurley. I now invite past North Star recipients Bill Lampson and Bill McCurley to introduce our 2020 North Star honorees. Gentlemen, take it away.
Ready? Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining us this morning to help celebrate our two recipients for the North Star Award. My name is Bill Lampson. I'm very honored and feel very privileged to be here to help introduce Ed Ray, one of our recipients. Ed has been a tremendous part of our community for many, many years. And been such a generous part of our community. Ed grew up on a small farm in Washtuckna. He was a ranch hand for his father on the farm, and Ed did everything that was expected of a young ranch boy, or ranch man, if you will. His buddies had their own little scout troop in the Washtuckna area. They spent a lot of time exploring the outskirts of and wilderness of Washtuckna. Quick story on that, I remember Ed telling me and sharing with me, he and his buddies were out one day having some fun in the wilderness of the Washtuckna Hills, and having so much fun they got late on them. It got dark towards evening, and they finally decided they were going to be in some real trouble if they didn't head for home. So they did. They sprinted all the way home, and Ed being the aggressor, took the lead and dashed home so quickly, they nicknamed him the Washtuckna Flash. And
I still
Ed tells me
remember that
that's the
night.
name that stuck with him all his life.
Yeah.
Ed was also a very good student. He was a valedictorian of his class of 1944.
12 people.
He also was one of only 2 young men that qualified and participated in the Army Special Training Reserve Program at what was then Washington State College. Now we know it as WSU. There, Ed also met his love, Shirley. They married and enjoyed college together. Later, of course, after Ed had received his civil engineering degree, they moved to Pasco and raised their 3 children, Vicki, Randy, and Leslie. All the while they were growing their family, they grew the business. When they came back to Pasco, of course, Ed used his pig money that I mentioned earlier to make the down payment for the Dunning Insurance Company.
$3,500
Later
bucks.
renamed as Dunning Ray Insurance Company. But again, while raising the family and doing all he did in the community, Ed grew the business to be what I believe to be the premier independent insurance agency in southeastern Washington, certainly in the Tri-Cities. Ed later sold the business to Conover Insurance, who operates it yet today. I'd like to talk a little bit about Ed's involvement in the community. He's been a very, very generous person with his time, his money, and these other resources to support the Tri-Cities community. He has been a great supporter of the Washington wheat farmers for many, many years, a member of the El Katif Shriners, president of the Mid-Columbia Symphony, a huge supporter of the Tri-Cities Water Follies, as well as being a huge sponsor and supporter of the Miss Tri-Cities and Miss Washington beauty pageants. Ed was a founding member of the Tri-City Nuclear Industrial Council. Now we know it as TRIDEC, our Economic Development Council. And Ed was a longtime supporter, of course, still is, of Columbia Basin College. Regarding youth, Ed has also been a tremendous sponsor of the youth in our community. He's never been one to turn down a request for any youth for fundraising effort for their school, their church, or sports program. Ed has obviously been very successful in life, successful with his family, successful with his business, successful in his community. Ed attributes that to his strong faith in God, his devotion to his family, his love of his business, and his appreciation for this community. All of that together makes Ed Ray a wonderful man. So once again, I'm honored to be here today to congratulate Ed, and together with all of you, give him the wonderful honor of being the Boy Scout Blue Mountain Council recipient of the North Star Award. So thank you all for being here with me this morning.
Yes, thank you, Bill. Actually, whenever I look at you and I think of everything you're saying, it just goes back to your parents. Because I can remember when Lamson was just getting started, it was a family group, and I've been so proud to have been associated with that on various business ventures. And so I thank you for everything that was said there. I think on the Nuclear Council that I'm the last remaining board member. Your dad was on it, as you know. And Glenn Lee, of course, who was on it, basically ran it. And he was the guy that owns the building where the Boy Scouts are. So, and then that's just what we're talking about today is Boy Scouts. When I think of Boy Scouts, or what our function is today, It takes me back to Washtuckna, to 1940, when I was I was in the 8th grade. We had a scoutmaster, our school teacher, named Warren Seifert. And he thought that, and he just formed us. Remember, we're just coming out of the Depression. Everybody's very poor, and before the World War. So he thought that this group of kids will learn how to speed read. So for all things, he teaches us how to speed read. And if there's anything that's done anything in my life to make me progress, it's the fact that I read, and I read a lot. And even with the kids with all their fancy instruments, they still have to be read. And it's so important, and I give that back to Scouts. It all started in Scouts. And then the war came along, and Seifert then left Washtuckna, but I always had a soft spot in my heart for Warren Seifert, my Scout master. I was a little mad at him one time, though, because he took us on a hike to Palouse Falls. And that's quite a ways out of Washtuckna. It's up over the canyons and all that. And we got out there too late and then had to get home in the dark. And so that was, everybody was kidding our scoutmaster, but then I was more familiar with it than some of them. And that's where I got the nickname Washtuckna Flash, because we got down to the road and we could see Washtuckna, and I started sprinting back. And Mrs. Sullivan was waiting for us because, see, they didn't have all the stuff they got nowadays, no cell phones. Well, they wouldn't let that be. So she had sandwiches with bologna for them, and we were all famished. But anyway, the Scouts always had a soft spot. So in my family now, I've got 3 grandsons that are Eagle Scouts, and a son-in-law that is an Eagle Scout. So I've always felt real strong about it. I mean, you know, I couldn't help it because our deal went away, and I think they've started again, but maybe. It's got to keep in mind that's during the war and all that stuff. It's just different. And so then came to the Tri-Cities, and I've been so happy to be here. I'm so proud of the Tri-Cities, and so proud of Pasco. Pasco has developed so much. When I came here, you can hear stories back how it was in those days. And then during the time that I was in the service myself, the Hanford plant opened up, and we started going on that. But the reason that the Pasco and Tri-City communities grew the way they did, because after the war, it was the servicemen returning, and they were serious. They wasn't goofing around. And all my friends and everything, and so I was in part of that group. And see, just like on the nuclear council, and I wasn't, how old, I don't know, 25, 26, and when I went on the board there. And so there was that group of get it done. And it was just wonderful in the Pasco group how we did it. And Glenn Lee, of course, the Tri-City Herald, he built a building for the Scouts. Scouts always been good. So we're just grateful to be here, grateful for the award. And so thank you, and Godspeed.
Hi, I'm Bill McCurley, and as last year's recipient of the Boy Scouts North Star Award, I'm honored to be a presenter for the award this year, and I'm here to introduce George. George Garlick has been in the Tri-Cities 58 years, so I suspect everyone knows something of George. Most of you know that George has referred to himself as a farm boy from Curtis, Nebraska, who's not forgotten his roots. George grew up on a dryland farm during World War II. He learned the importance of helping neighbors and a dependence on God. After receiving his PhD degree in electrical engineering and solid-state physics from Iowa State University in 1962, he accepted a position at Hanford Labs. Although George worked in California and New York during graduate school, George believed that the Tri-Cities was the best place for he and Carol to raise their family and contribute to the community. George Garlick's passion to help others has resulted in his forming and financing the Gloria Meek Garlick Foundation. This foundation is named after his brother Roland's wife, Gloria, who died of breast cancer while the family was serving as missionaries in South America. The foundation provides medical imaging systems manufactured in the Tri-Cities for use by underserved peoples. In the last 5 years, Dr. Garlick has been a major contributor to his church, the First Presbyterian Church, and contributed to the Gather for Him fundraiser and Young Life programs throughout the Tri-Cities. George is the founder and teaching leader of the Bible Study Fellowship and past president of the 7,000-member Eastern Walk to Emmaus. George Garlick has a passion for the Tri-Cities community. His many contributions include co-chairman of the State of Washington Bicentennial Celebration in 1989, hosting Pacific Rim Technical Summit in the Tri-Cities. George was awarded a U.S. Small Business Administration Special Merit Award for service to the Hanford Project and for development of the Stevens Center Business Park. George received a special recognition for the Junior Achievement Program. He's done numerous presentations for career days and science classes in the Tri-Cities. George was on the Finance Committee for the Tri-City Chaplaincy and the Finance Committee for CREST. And George has also been involved in other support committees for TRIDEC and many other community organizations. George has a beautiful wife, Carol, who's been at his side for over 60 years. George and Carol have 3 children, Sharon Kay, Todd Guy, and Scott Bryan. They also have 7 grandchildren and 3 great-grandchildren. He enjoys fishing with his sons and grandkids, and like all good Scouts, can't get enough of the outdoors. I present to you George Garlick, the 2020 recipient of the Blue Mountain Council of Boy Scouts of America North Star Award.
It is amazing that God allows us to give. But it's also amazing as we give in the right way, we receive far more than we ever expected. I am so thankful to be in this community. I was born and raised on a dry land farm in Nebraska. We never even went to town, only once a month. It was the war effort was on. We was given everything we could to the war effort. My brother was in the service. The bottom line was so that my father began going blind with simple cataracts. We had to move off the farm because he could no longer see. And I stood by him working at a janitor at a school at 40 cents an hour, and he was only earning $1 an hour. I was shy, did not know how to get assimilated into the community. And then there was a wonderful man, very humble man. He was one of the few people that at least acknowledged to me that he was a member of the Boy Scouts. He personally allowed all of us, I would say, disadvantaged kids to be part of what he envisioned as a Scout experience. This community, this Scouting program is so unique. It is so strong. This is a can-do, will-do community. This is a community will take the shy, the bashful, or those that are not otherwise advantaged, even those that are advantaged with the right kind of attitude and the right kind of drive, to make their life more meaningful, to make it something of power, something of substance. We only walk this earthly life once. And you think about all the things that you have contributed to, each of you. They have a life longer than this mortal life. We are born, we raised, some of us have cancer at some time, as I have. But the reality is we have a mortal life. But what we leave behind, what Scouts has left behind, what Scouts has left behind in the hearts and minds of young men is not limited. You can even say it's not mortal. It can be immortal. And everyone that has stepped forward, and there's so many in this community that have, you have a community here of generous people that look to serve others. Even like the video that I saw, one of many, a man of honor who is looking to what he can do for the community and for others. And there's so many others. I'm hesitate to name because I would take all the rest of the day to name the people that I honor, respect, and thank in this community. So yes, I'm humbled, but I also will say I'm honored. Not necessarily for the award per se, but what it represents and what it means to encourage others that may see that they have some kind of financial or maybe even physical disability to overcome, to go forward. Our contribution to life, our contribution, the reason we're here on this earth is not limited by our title or money. It is not limited by anything that is tangible. And the intangible is not limited by value. It is, in fact, infinite in nature. No matter what you envision, no what goal that you have, how much insight, Mother Teresa had no reason to be recognized, and yet everybody knows the name. Why? Because she had the insight to think about what's important, not important in an immortal way, but important in an immortal way, in an eternal way. And that's what it's all about. That is why we're here. That's why we are blessed with this time together on this earth. And I thank you, I thank the community, but I thank you for each other. I thank you for what you've done, not necessarily my contribution. I'm one of many, and God bless.
Well, we have to thank you both, and congratulations, Ed Ray and George Garlick, our 2020 North Star honorees, individuals whose legacy of service and generosity has touched and moved us all. As we participated in the program today, I hope you felt as inspired and touched as I have to help ensure scouting here in our community continues to thrive and makes a difference for youth, including some of our most vulnerable. I'll tell you what, you're already making an impact. We have about $11,000 of donations. It's about 30% towards that full match. There's still plenty of time. I should mention this broadcast, if you want to watch this, share it with your friends. In fact, particularly General Mattis, that wonderful leadership message. You're going to be able to do that when you visit the council's YouTube channel. Share that stream out. We're going to have the donation form available for about the next 2 weeks. So we encourage you to share with your friends, those that you think would find good value in contributing to our future leaders here in our community, and we'll take full advantage of that match. And we want to thank Stevens Center Management. Again, we had Monica Hatcher here who did that wonderful introduction of General Mattis. Thank you, thank you, thank you for your support in providing that donation for that match. Of course, our board members for contributing to that match, and our special friends. We can't thank you enough. Again, your donation today means that much more as we recognize the challenges and uncertainties of this unprecedented time. We can't thank you enough for investing in Scouts. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we've arrived. We thank you for joining us this morning. Be safe and healthy, and watch for our Scouts along the trail of service and adventure, the Scouts that you helped build into leaders, and leaders that will be needed now more than ever before. Have yourselves an exceptional morning. Thank you so much for joining us.